Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to my show today. I have Apple Crider on the show. And actually, Apple, you weren't born with that name, were you?
I was not. So, Patty, you caught me red-handed. If you look at my birth certificate, you'll find half of that name. You won't find the full thing, though. So,
Huh.
I'll let you guys guess which half.
So, yeah, I was thinking it wouldn't be like, I don't know, it wouldn't be Apple.
It was not. It was not.
Oh
So,
my goodness.
yeah,
So,
legally, it's Andrew,
mhm.
Andrew Kreider. But the story goes that in second grade, a buddy of mine thought Andrew Kreider sounded like apple cider, and
Oh my goodness.
being a second grader, I thought that was a pretty cool name. So
Yeah.
I just decided to roll with that all throughout elementary school, made it to middle school. People still thought that was a cool name, so I kept rolling with it. Made it to high school. I was like, I don't know if I want to be Apple anymore, but at that point it kind of stuck, and like my friends from elementary school kind of just knew me as Apple, and there wasn't really like any getting rid of it. So I kind of just leaned into it, embraced it, and now here we are, quite a while later, and I'm still rolling with it.
I actually really like it though, because the first time that I ran across you on social media, I did a double take. That's why I did a double take, is because of your
Yeah,
name. So
yeah.
it works for you.
It works well for branding too. I mean, when I go to events and introduce myself to people, it's a name that they don't forget, especially like with the bandana. Usually I've
Mhm,
got crazy hair going on, but I'm taking a break from that right now.
mhm.
But I think branding's really important, even if it is just like superficial stuff like your name and a bandana and stuff.
It is. What can I do? What do I need to do to myself? Maybe purple hair,
I could see it.
Mhm.
I could see Patty with
Purple.
purple hair Patty.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, it rhymes. There we go. So the next show, no. So if you could, I would love it if you could just tell our guests a little bit about where you came from, maybe a little bit about your childhood. I love it for our guests to be able to connect with those who are on my show, just to kind of know where they're coming from. So do you mind telling us like
Yeah.
where you're from, a little bit about
Yeah, sure.
yourself? Yeah.
I'm an open book. So, born and raised in the Midwest. I've grown up in Minneapolis, Minnesota my whole life. Just graduated from school in Madison, Wisconsin a couple weeks ago. So go Badgers.
Yay.
Um,
Good for you.
and so I mean, really growing up, like middle class. Nothing crazy. Went to public school in the city. So some people are really afraid of that. There's literally nothing to be afraid of. But so grew up going to public school. Went to public college, and so that's basically schooling in terms of and we can really dive into whatever you want within that, but
Yeah.
at a high level, that's kind of where I came from.
I'm kind of curious. So, a lot of my listeners may not have heard of you yet because I
Mhm.
mean, I've been blasting you all over social media
And I
because,
appreciate that very
yeah.
much.
So, for those listening, Apple and his buddy Rom, they co-founded an or not an organization, a business together, Podblade. And I had Rom on the show recently, and now it's Apple's turn. These guys just blow me away because at only, what, are you 19 also, or how old are
No,
you?
so I recently turned 21, so I'm the
Ooh.
oldie in our business.
All right. So, how did you start podcasting first? We'll go there first.
Sure, that's a good place to start. So
Mhm.
I started podcasting, I think it's a little over 2 years ago now. So I've been doing it for a little while, not quite as long as you. You've got me beat by a little while,
Well,
but
I'm only 22. So,
just a little bit beat.
yeah.
But yeah, so I started about 2 years ago. I got invited to be interviewed on my local college radio station when I was going to school in Madison, for an Instagram business that I was running. So like 2.5 years ago, I was running this Instagram growth company where I was helping mostly influencers, public figures, kind of people who had online personal brands going on. I was helping them grow their following on Instagram, and better monetize. So I had that going on. I was making a little bit of money, and my college radio station kind of picked it up. They're like, "Yo, this college kid's making a little bit of money, doing some stuff on Instagram. Like, let's bring him on the radio." And I was like, I've never done an interview before. I don't know why anyone would want to talk to me. Like, I'm just like a normal kid, but I guess I'll go on the radio. So I went on the radio and did this like 30-45 minute little interview thing, and walked out of it feeling really good. Like I really enjoyed that experience. And I
Mhm.
was really hooked. I went right back to my dorm room and I Googled like, how do I interview people? Cause like I wanted to do that. Like I really, I just got so much excitement out of like sharing my story
Mhm.
and being able to just like sit down with someone in the booth for 30, 45 minutes and just chop it up. So I was
Mhm.
like, I want to do more of this. So I went back to my dorm room, Googled that, and then I stumbled into podcasting because prior to doing that Google search, I didn't know what a podcast was. I'd never listened to a podcast. Like I didn't know what the word meant. So then I kind of stumbled into that world, and within about 4 or 5 days, I'd launched my podcast. Like I
Wow.
found this thing, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to
Mhm.
do it. So yeah, those 4 or 5 days leading up to it, I really just like sat down, figured out all the ins and outs on the technology side, figured out what I was going to talk about, got a name, got some
Mhm.
art create. Well, I created my own art, and I was just kind of going. Like I didn't need anything. I didn't need any permission. I didn't need to know exactly what I was doing. I just knew that this
Mhm.
is what I wanted to do. So I just hopped right on in. And that's where it started.
Wow. So, 21 years old, you start your own business. How did you end up meeting Ram how did this all intersect together?
Yeah. So Ram is actually one. He's a longtime listener of my podcast, Young Smart Money.
Mhm.
And about I think about 6 months into doing my show, he reached out to me and he told me that he wanted to start a podcast, and he had no idea where to start, and he had been listening to mine for a while, and he just kind of wanted to get my 2 cents. So I believe I was like I offered to get on a Zoom call with him and kind of just like walk him through the process and everything. So I did that, and then kind of from there, we just kind of started talking, shooting ideas back and forth in terms of like projects to work on or like ideas for our podcasts and stuff. And so
Mhm.
it kind of just developed organically through him listening to my show, reaching out, and then us just kind of shooting ideas back and forth from there.
Mhm. So, what was it? What was one of the number one reasons why you decided to start Podblade?
Yeah, so it kind of started. It was kind of just an idea that Ram and I had because about a year into my show, I had outsourced pretty much everything except for the actual like interview conversation pieces.
Mhm.
I had my emails all being managed. I had my shows being edited. I had the graphics being produced. I had everything else being done. So all that I needed to do was the part that I like to do, which was sit down with someone, have the conversation, and ask the questions that I wanted the answers to, and then my audience wanted the question or the answers to.
Mhm.
So I had gotten that whole system in place, and at that point, Ram he had sort of seen like all the stuff that I'd set up, and he was like, "Man, like I think there'd be potential for us to like provide this for other people because I mean clearly like you've been able to take everything off your plate for an affordable cost,
Yeah.
and this is probably something other people want too because he had." Basically used all of my same people that I was using to outsource my show to outsource his show. So from there, we kind of just started reaching out to our buddies in the podcasting space. I mean, we're pretty well connected to at least a couple dozen podcasters at that point.
Mhm.
So we just kind of started reaching out to them, and we're like, "Yo, have you ever tried outsourcing your any parts of your podcast before? How did it go? Would you ever consider doing it?" So we're kind of just like feeling out our networks and seeing if this would be viable. And then from there, we kind of sort of started to offer our team that we built up their
Mhm.
services to other people, just kind of on a one-on-one basis, just to kind of be like, does this actually scale? You know, like it's working for us too, but like, can we actually add more people to this without it breaking? You know, because
Mhm.
when you have a team of people, there's going to be points where things get tough and communication gets difficult and stuff. So we kind of wanted to just like ease our way into it. And
Mhm.
after a few weeks of doing that, it seemed like things were going pretty well. So we decided to really put some structure behind it, put a brand together, put a website together, and actually like try to turn this into a real business because we'd seen it starting to work for other people. So we're like, yo, let's see if we can do something here. And so that was about 6 to 9 months ago, somewhere in there.
Mhm.
And so ever since then, we have just been on an upward trajectory because, I mean, podcasting services in general, they haven't been cheap historically. I mean, if you Google like podcast editing services, pages 1 through 5 on Google, you're not going to find any editing cheaper than like 80 to $100 an episode. Like that's
Mhm.
just what the market's charging right now. So when we were able to come in and offer $20 podcast editing, people responded pretty well to that,
Mhm.
and we're really catering to more of like the side hustle podcaster, you know, someone
Mhm.
who's not doing this full time, who doesn't have hundreds or thousands of dollars to invest in their show every month.
Mhm.
Um, and there's a lot of people doing that. There's a lot of people who are kind of just podcasting on the side, doing it for fun, maybe making a little bit of money from it, maybe not,
Mhm.
but who are willing to invest $20 an episode to take a couple hours of work off of their plate and just focus more on the enjoyable parts.
Mm-hmm. I tell you what, for me, it has been like a huge load off of my plate. It is so nice to just literally upload maybe a few pictures for the audiogram, logo, whatever, and then the audio and not have to worry about it again. Like that is so
Honestly.
nice. And then when it's all done and it's all edited, then you guys I can log into my account and there it is, it's done. And you guys have already uploaded it to my host and YouTube channel and everything. So it's cool. Um, so one question I like to ask my audience or my guests for my audience is, what is one obstacle that you've come across in life in general? It doesn't have to be in podcasting. It can be in whatever that you kind of may have overcome. So I kind of putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. So the first thing that comes to mind is something that I'm still working to cultivate. I definitely wouldn't say that I've mastered this or overcome this obstacle, but that's got to be focus. I find that as time goes on, I realize more and more the importance of having a clear focus and having a clear goal in mind, and really just having that sort of tunnel vision in terms of like getting yourself to that goal. So just a quick example of this, about a year and a half ago, maybe 18 months, I was feeling really stressed out. And a buddy of mine told me what I needed to do was I needed to write down all the projects I was working on, and sort of just get a feel for like what I was actually doing, because I felt like I was doing way too much. I was stressed out all the time. So he's like, yo, just like get a whiteboard, write down everything you're doing. And he's sort of going to walk me through this whole process. And he's like, all right, we'll go from there. So I start writing on this whiteboard. And by the time I finished writing on this whiteboard, I have written down 27 different projects that I was working on.
Wow.
It was ridiculous. I was like, what am I doing? How do I think that I can do 27 things at any kind of respectable level where they're going to get done in any kind of way, So I had these 27 things on this whiteboard, and my buddy was like, that is absolutely ridiculous. So he walked me through this quick exercise that if you're up for it, I'd be super down to walking your audience through as well, because it was really valuable for me.
Yeah.
Sweet. So basically what he had me do was he had me go through, okay, so I got these 27 things on a whiteboard. And what he has me do is he says, okay, next to each one, I want you to write $1 through $3 signs, depending on how much income potential this thing has to generate for you in the next 6 to 12 months. Okay. So just on a rough basis, okay, $1, $2, or $3 signs, or zero. How much income potential does this have? So I did that. I went through everything on the list, all 27, and kind of did $1 through $3 signs, depending on how much income potential. He's like, great. Okay. Next step, what you got to do is next to each one, draw 1 to 3 clocks. Okay. Just like a little sketch of a clock, depending on how much time it's going to take you per week or per month or per whatever to do it at an adequate level. Okay. So it's going to be something that's going to take you a long time every single month. This is a big time commitment. It's something that you don't have to spend that much time on to actually do it. So you're going to rate everything based on that criteria. And then the third thing you're going to do is you're going to use a very scientific sort of scaling system of a smiley face, a neutral face, or a frowny face to determine how this thing makes you feel while you're doing it or after you've completed it. Okay, so now you've rated everything on this list on these 3 criteria based on how much money they have the potential to make you, how much time they have, how much time they require for you to do, and then how they make you feel when you're actually doing it. So once you've done all of these things for all of the things on your list, all the projects you're working on or want to be working on, then it becomes a lot easier to sort of see what you should actually be spending your time on. So from here, what I decided to do, and this is kind of like, I feel like the most important thing is instead of just kind of ranking them on, okay, this one ranks the highest, so this is going to be number 1 priority, number 2, number 3, number 4, all the way through 27. What I decided to do was I was like, okay, I'm not just going to keep doing what I'm doing and try to do 27 things, okay? Because that's not working for me so far. It's got me stressed out and not really going anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally cut out, spend 0 time on 24 of the things and spend all of my time between 3 of the things. Okay. And that was kind of a principle that I got from Gary Keller, the book, The One Thing. I couldn't quite cut it down to 1 thing. So I decided to cut it down to 3 things. But I decided that I'm only going to spend my time on these 3 things, and I'm going to literally eliminate, no matter how good an offer sounds, no matter how good the opportunity seems, those other 24 things are getting 0 time put into them. until, and I set it for 3 months. Okay. I said next quarter, I'll reevaluate my 3 things that I'm working on. Maybe I'll add in something, maybe I'll swap one of them out, whatever. But for the next 3 months, it's just these 3 things. So that was a really tough process for me. I got to tell you, like,
Mm-hmm.
it was really easy getting from 27 down to 6, but from 6 to 3 was really, really challenging. There were a lot of things there that I really enjoyed doing, or that really had a lot of potential to go somewhere. But I knew that if I just kept splitting my time between so many things, I was going to keep getting what I was already getting, which was not much. So that exercise, I come back to that from time to time too when I'm feeling stressed out, when I'm feeling like I have too much stuff on my plate, too many sort of objectives that I'm trying to work towards, because I think it's really valuable to look at the things that you're spending your time on, and figure out where your priorities are at, and if they're aligned with where your goals are at. So that it is a long-winded way for me to say that I think focus is really, really important, especially for young people. There's so many shiny objects pulling us in so many different directions that
Mm-hmm.
if we don't take control of our attention, someone else will. If we don't set our schedule, someone else will. So having that focus has been really, really impactful for me. And the more I cultivate it, the more I can see the results that it's cultivated for me in my life.
I really love those steps too. And, I've written things down, I've written lists down, but I never really thought about the dollar signs and how important
Yeah.
that is, or my time, how valuable that is. So I love those tips. I'll probably implement those myself. I'm going to try that out after we're done with this
You
podcast. I'm
should
going to
let
be
me know how
making my
it
list.
goes.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. So, with Podblade,
Mhm,
if somebody wants to go ahead and use your services,
mhm.
I did become a Podblade affiliate, everybody,
Yep.
so that's really exciting, and I'm gonna start actually plugging that a lot. Um, the holidays were here and I wasn't able to do that until recently, but I'm really excited to be a part of Podblade. And you all know who listen to me how picky I am. And I have been podcasting for like 12 years before it was even super cool. So I have a lot of connections, and I know a lot of people who they've been asking me like, how are you doing everything that you do? And my number one answer is seriously Podblade. Um, there's no, like, I would spend so much time even just putting an audiogram together, or that to me is so much time that I could be doing something else. So I just really appreciate the service, and it's really affordable. I checked into other audio editing and I thought, well, geez, I might as well just do it myself. But then I can't remember if it was you, Apple, or Rom. Somebody messaged me and was like, I'm just wondering if you could have affordable editing, would you do it? And I was like, I'm just going to do it myself, because I just figured you were going to be another one of those guys who are going to say like $500 an episode. And I thought, well, I can do it myself. I know how to do it myself. I hate doing it myself, though. That's the thing. Like, so on my list with focus, it would have like a huge frowny face next to the editing for me. So I'm glad you like to do it. You have a team that likes to do it, I should say. Um, and so I just really appreciate you being on the show. Is there anything else that you kind of want to touch on, or maybe something else that you do? And definitely we want to share your social media links and all that too.
Yeah, sure. Well, Patty, first of all, just thank you so much for everything you're doing for Podblade. I really appreciate you spreading the word, and I'm super grateful to have you as a part of our team as an affiliate. It really means a lot.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for that.
Yes.
In terms of any last things, I mean, one other thing that I found to be really helpful for me, just kind of a quick side note here,
Mhm.
is time blocking, and this kind of goes hand in hand with focus. But there's a Jim Rohn quote that I kind of live by, and it's don't start your day until it's finished. And what he kind of means by that is like, don't go into a day without knowing exactly what you're going to be doing. So one practice that I have is every night before I go to bed, I go into Google Calendar and I time block out my next day,
Mhm.
usually in about 15-minute increments. So
Mhm.
I plan out exactly what I'm going to be doing, where I'm going to be, so that I know the next day that I don't have to wake up and kind of figure out like, okay, what do I want to do now? What fires do I have to put out now? Like
Mhm.
what's next on the docket? I just kind of wake up and I'm ready to go. So that's one thing that's been hugely impactful for me. And again, it really only takes like 5-10 minutes a night. You just kind of, before you go to bed, you just kind of like mock up your next day. Like, what do you want to get done? When are you going to spend time doing it? Where are you going to be?
Mhm.
And that's been really, really helpful for me, and just making sure that I'm staying accountable to myself, that I'm moving towards my goals. then maintaining that focus, because if you don't take control of your day, it's going to take control of you, and it's probably not going to
Yeah.
take you in the direction that you want to be going. So
Hmm.
that's one of the practice that I've really found a lot of benefit in implementing, and would highly recommend any listeners to consider as well.
Yes, and that's such a huge tip. I actually just had somebody message me the other day and she was asking me about how do I schedule my day. And it's the exact same. I have to have a schedule. If I don't, like, I literally live for my calendar. Like
Yeah,
every
yeah,
day, I'm like looking at the calendar. What do I do next? What do I do next? Because if I don't, I do lose focus easy because so many people will try to pull you in so many directions. And if you let
mm,
that happen, you're not going to get what you need done.
so
So,
true.
yeah, so those are really amazing tips. And it's so cool that you've learned that too at such a young age. If I had known all this stuff when I was younger, I mean, I could be president by now, probably. So I just appreciate you so much. And you're just such an awesome guy. And I love Podblade. I love what you're doing. I love your podcast. Can you tell our listeners where they can listen to you?
Yeah, sure. So it's called Young Smart Money, and if you search that in any podcast platform, you'll find it. Or you can go to youngsmartmoney.com, listen to it there. Whatever's convenient for you, wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you'll find it there. It's the one with the picture of the dude with the blue hair on it, so you can't miss it.
Yep, he's blue. I'm going to be purple. All right. So thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate you. And everybody, you're going to find the links and all the show notes that you read. And I'll have them linked on my social media. You'll be able to see it here on the YouTube channel. We'll have the link here. So just click it. So thank you, Apple.
Thank you
And
so
thanks.
much, Patty. I
Yeah, thanks,
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And stay tuned next Friday. The next episode comes out.